Well, welcome back, everyone, to Journey to Well, the podcast. I am super excited to have this conversation with Tammy. She is an IFS therapist, which I was kind of explaining to you, Tammy. I don't know. I think I've casually thrown around the term IFS on my podcast before and on my social media platform. But I don't even know if I've ever explained it or talked about why I'm interested in it. So that's why I reached out to you, because you can explain it much more eloquently than I can. And I'm sure you have much more
Maybe.
knowledge. I'm sure you can. So I love to start each one of my podcast episodes actually letting my guests introduce themselves, because who better can I can't introduce you as well as you can introduce yourself. And I love getting to know how people would want to introduce themselves and be introduced. So who is Tammy? Say hello. What you got going on?
I love that idea so much because I hate the stale, like, oh, this person graduated from blah, blah, blah. That doesn't really tell anybody anything about them. So I
Right.
actually love this idea. Yeah, so I am a internal family systems therapist. And I have a podcast called The One Inside, and I wrote a book called The One Inside 30 Days to Your Authentic Self. And so the idea of the one inside is this idea, it could be two things. One is it could be the way we talk, right? There's a part of me inside who wants to eat you and I live in the same area. And so I just dropped my car off and there's, maple square donuts. It's like a New
Yeah.
England thing. And so, there's a part of me that's like, yes, I want 3 maple square donuts. And so there's one inside of me that wants 3 maple square donuts. And there's another one inside of me that's like, nope, we've got boiled eggs and we're going to have boiled eggs for breakfast and blueberries. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's these two things inside of me, which in IFS we call parts, two
Mm-hmm.
parts of me that want different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one side could be me, that
Mm-hmm.
authentic self, that one inside of me who was
Mm-hmm.
calm and clear minded and connected to my body and more embodied. And that one, that me, maybe says, you know what, let's get that donut. We'll share it with my partner and we'll just have a slither. And then
Mm-hmm.
we'll wait, and then we'll have some boiled eggs. That feels really good. That feels good.
Mm-hmm.
I am listening with some clarity to both of these parts of me. And today that's why I decided to do another day. It could have been like, let's go ahead and get the whole thing. Another day I'd been like, I'm not feeling that today. Right. I hear
Mm-hmm.
you and I hear that you want that. And I get that. But today's sort of not the day. We're going to do something else today. But I am the one that's listening. And I'm also the one that I'm like the adult in the room, right? Like these are
Mm-hmm.
two probably younger parts of me, and then I could
Okay.
be the adult in the room listening to them and kind of making that decision.
Mm, I love that. I love that. I love your podcast, by the way. For sure, go check it out. Especially after this conversation, I feel like this will be a good intro, and then you can go and listen. I feel like your podcast is very digestible for those of us that don't know a lot about IFS.
Good. I want it to be like, I
It
so
is.
want it to be digestible. That's good.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah. Which is very much the reason that I started my podcast too, is like I want to have easily digestible conversations about human design, about emotions and grief and processing things in IFS and somatic breath
Yeah.
work. So hopefully this whole conversation is very beginner friendly and digestible for everyone.
Yeah.
So
I
let's
love that.
start with the beginning. What is IFS? It stands for Internal Family Systems. The founder, a little bit of the history of IFS, just for those of us that don't really know anything about it.
Okay. So Richard Schwartz, who goes by Dick was family therapist, right? External
Mm-hmm.
family therapist. And so he was a family therapist. And in a family, there's sort of a dance of a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say really stereotypical. parts of people listening are going to cringe when I say this, but let's say it's sort of stereotypical, let's be really obnoxious about it. Like mom stays home with an apron and she's been baking cookies. And then there's a little boy and he's playing with trucks and a
Yeah.
little girl and she's playing with Barbies. This is
Yeah.
making me sick as I say it. And then the dad comes home from work with his briefcase and he's like, hello, family. I am home from work today.
Yeah.
And then, maybe brother has had a bad day. And so brother, throws something at sister, and then sister has a reaction, and mom has a reaction, and then dad has a reaction. And so everybody has a reaction. Or maybe brother picks up on the tension between mom and dad, and so he ends up being really good, or really good boy, and then mom is like, yay, he's a good boy. And so everyone sort of reacts. So we think of this family, like in family therapy, there's a family dance, right? Sometimes there's one kid that's the presenting problem, but actually it's the parents' marriage is the problem and the kid is the one that's sort of acting out. But there's this family dance and everyone sort of reacts. And so Dick was working with people with eating disorders. And I think eating is such a good way to see this dance happen inside of us. And that's what he found out. He found out, wait a minute, that family dance that I'm seeing between this family, whatever that family looks like, that's actually happening inside of us. Right.
Wow.
I have a part that wants that maple donut. And I have another part that's like, you are a fatty and you are disgusting. You should just go ahead and get 3. And then I have another part that's like, oh my gosh, are we really talking about this? Like, how old are we? Are we still going to be talking about this when we're 80? Come on, let's get a grip. Right. And another part that's like, so all of these parts are reacting to each other. It's not just one wants the maple donut and the other one wants the blueberries. There's one that's criticizing, like, are you kidding me right now? And another one's like, yeah, you should go with the one that wants the blueberries because blah, 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 blah. Right. So there's, it's not just 2, right? There's 6 and they're all reacting to each other. There's this inner dance that's happening. And so Dick found that out. He could hear people talking, right? I have a part of me that wants to lose weight. I have a part that wants to restrict. I have another part that's like, that is dumb and terrible, and you need to stop doing that. And so he heard that. And then sometimes he would hear clarity or wisdom or compassion. And he would say, well, who's that? And they would say, oh, that's just me. And so he realized that there's actually a just me in there too, right? There's a part that wants to restrict, a part that wants to binge, and then there's just me. And so that's what happened. And so he developed this model. He had help from other people that added other things to the model around ritual and around unburdening, and put together this model. And so it's been 40 years, which is amazing. It doesn't seem like it, but it's taken off. It's taken off over the past, I think, 10 years. And it's an evidence-based model now. So people that are familiar with like cognitive behavioral therapy, that's an evidence-based model. And so now IFS is an evidence-based model, which says that we have evidence. There's clear evidence that this model is helpful for healing and giving people relief or symptom relief, and healing.
Wow. I'm curious what got you interested in IFS. Where is your journey coming into that? When did you find IFS? Did you start going to therapy with an IFS therapist first, or did you get trained first? What's your connection?
Yeah, so I was trained in family systems too, like external family systems, but more CBT. I was trained in DBT.
Okay.
So I was
Yep.
trained in more thinking and thought led, right? Like, so if there's a
Okay.
behavior, then we're going to analyze the behavior, we're going to think about the behavior, we're going to look at triggers, we're going to try to change behavior, change thoughts, right? So I would handle that differently, right? There's a thought that's the behavior is that, and so maybe I don't get the donut and I have a different behavior. Sort of, I would look at a behavior plan, or I would look at thoughts. I would look at totally different. And so I was a therapist for, I've so lost kind of track of time. It's sort of, I'm like,
Me too.
I've lived in Dover for 10 years. I'm like, no, I've lived here for 20 years. So I'm like, how have I ever lived anywhere for 20 years? Like, that's not, like, I'm only 25 years old. So
Right. Yeah, no,
impossible.
we're still 20.
I know, like, what? So I had been a therapist for a while. Who knows how long? But I had been a therapist for a while, and I went to this in Portsmouth. Actually, I went to a training, and this woman just starts talking about IFS and about bringing curiosity to our clients and to
Mm.
ourselves.
Wow.
And I just something really, because we didn't do that. I wasn't curious about your part that was cutting yourself or whatever.
Yeah.
No, you just need to stop doing that. So
Right.
I was like, oh, like something really clicked. Like, what if I brought curiosity? And I actually felt
Mm.
myself kind of soften back. So
Wow.
instead of being like leaning forward, I'm thinking, I'm working really hard. I'm making you work really hard, like either for myself or my
Mm.
clients. Like it's the same, right? It's I'm
Mhm.
working for me. It's the same. It's not like I'm just doing this for my clients. I'm doing it for me too.
Right.
What if I was curious? Like, I almost imagine just sitting back, this little softening, and a little bit like, okay, you come in and you're anxious. You don't want to be anxious. What if
Mm.
I helped you just bring some curiosity to like, what is that? Like, what's happening that you're anxious? Let's just
Mm.
imagine being curious about that. And I was like, that
Mhm.
would change so much, just bringing some curiosity. And then what about
Yeah.
me? Like, sort of the parts of me that are having these feelings, or parts of me that are moody, or parts of me that are, want to eat the maple donut, which I'm
Yeah.
going to keep talking about because it was so good. So, what if I just kind of just brought some curiosity to that
Right.
instead of shame, which I didn't have
Yeah.
that language because shame wasn't such a popular word as it is now.
Yeah.
It's such a popular word, but
Yeah.
like there's so much shame. And yeah, so that's what happened. And so then I did a little bit of a training with IFS with Dick. I did a training in
Mm.
Cape Cod, like a week-long training. And then I immediately started therapy. So really
Wow.
IFS, more than I think any other training or therapy modality, is like you need to do it. You need to have it done. It's not just something that you do. You really need to go and do your own
Yeah.
IFS work. Because when you're working
Mhm.
with clients, their parts are going to trigger your parts.
Mhm.
So not that I'm constantly triggered in therapy, but it's true. I mean, we notice
Yeah.
as therapists, or if you're in a healing profession, the people that you're working with, either they have the same, it's this weird thing that happens, whether they have the
Mm.
same themes going
Yeah.
on, or so someone comes in and they're dealing with grief, and I've got some grief stuff that I'm kind of like, that's kind of hanging out. That's going to be really
Mhm.
hard for me to sit with them.
Yep.
And so if I think about that as parts, right, I have parts that are dealing with grief, and they have parts that are dealing with grief. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but kind of I can be here, right? I can ask my
Yeah.
grief parts to step aside, and kind of I'm pushing kind of behind me. I said, I
Mhm.
can be here, adult me can be here, and I can help my client with their grief, their parts around grief. Um,
Mhm.
so anyway, so then I started IFS therapy, and
Mm.
which I'm still in. I still go to a therapist
Mhm.
every couple weeks, and then got trained in the model, and
Okay.
yeah, did all the
I love
steps that you
that.
need to do.
Yeah. I love that you're bringing up curiosity because that's one of the things that I find approachable about the IFS model without even like, yes, 1000% go to therapy yourself. You don't have to get trained in it if you're not a therapist or whatever, but like
Right,
go
right.
and experience it. But in learning about IFS, I find that so approachable, just that perspective, because as we become curious, we're raising our awareness of what's going on. I think a lot of times, especially in therapy or coaching or like a helping profession, like you said, when we're working with clients, sometimes there's stuff that comes up, even relationally, right? Like we don't even have to talk, we don't even have to label that into a coaching or a therapist field, even when you're talking to your friends and like they're going through something and you realize you're having some sort of like reaction, but you're not really sure why, right? And like when you
Yeah,
get into IFS and you dive into the parts like you were explaining, grief, right? You're talking to someone that maybe just broke up with their boyfriend, and you walk away from that conversation and there's something going on within you. Being able to just get curious and be like, what is coming up in me right now? What part of me is coming up? Or parts of me, a lot of times it's multiple, or getting triggered, like you use that word. What parts of me are getting triggered from that conversation? And instead of approaching it with shame or guilt or judgment, which is what we do all the time,
yeah,
what if, just the question, like what if I approached this more curiously and approached it from, what I really love about IFS is that separation of like self and parts. And then you did mention like, can I ask this part to step back for a moment? or can I separate myself from this part just for a moment? Because, well, actually, let me ask you why. I was just going to share my
That's
thought, but
good.
why?
Good.
Why?
Okay, so you just said so much good stuff. So
Mm,
I don't want to forget your question because that's a great question
sure.
about the space between
Yeah.
me and the part of me. So I want to
Hmm.
pause that question for a
Sure.
second. But yeah, I want people to think about the idea that like you're sitting with your friends and your friends going through a breakup and something happens in your body. There's
Mm,
something happening, or you drive away and something's happening.
mm,
Usually what we do is we do not pay attention to that something happening. We either go drink a glass of wine or go get more food, go get some snacks, or we get on our phone. Like I do not pay attention to that thing happening, right?
yep.
Like I just don't, right? I just quickly do something to get rid of that thing happening. So,
Mm,
so in IFS, what we'd say there is you're sitting with your friend
mhm,
and a part of you got triggered, right? A part of you got triggered. It could have been a fix it part, right? That's what often
mm,
happens with our friends. We want to
yeah.
fix it. We want to give advice, right? The sort of a fix it part. It could be a part that's similar, right? Look, so they broke up with their boyfriend and maybe I want to leave my relationship, or maybe I don't want to leave my relationship,
Mm,
or I'm afraid of wanting to leave my relationship, right?
mm,
So
yeah.
that could be there. And I don't want to feel that, right? I don't want to feel at all that I'm afraid. There's a part of me that might want to leave my relationship and I'm afraid. So I don't want to feel that at all. So bring me
Yeah.
the chips. Thank you very much. So, so something could be triggered, which is going to be, right? I love my friend and she's talking about something painful for her. And something is going to be triggered in me. And so those are parts. Those are parts of me that are going to be triggered. And so then we have, so we have these what we call protector parts, like something in me,
Mm,
which maybe potentially could be like sort of a younger, which we call exiled parts,
mm,
something vulnerable, sweet, tender is really triggered in me. And then we
mm,
have these protector parts that come in. They're like, no, thank you. We don't like that
yeah.
feeling, right? No, thank you. I want the chips. It's a
Yeah.
food focus day. I want the chips. Or I want to go for a run, which is fine. Go for a run. Or I want to go over exercise, or I want to go to bed, or I want to be perfectionistic in some way, or I want to criticize her, but I judge
Mm,
her, or I want to like
wow.
something might happen in order for me not to feel that vulnerability. So we
Right.
call that a protector
Okay.
part. And so when I'm with something gets triggered, and then another part comes in to deal with that. So sort of we can do it is to oversimplify it. Like part one is that initial feeling, and then part two comes in to take care of that feeling.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of is the simple thing. Then the
Mm-hmm.
opposite could happen, right? The opposite could happen where I know I'm going to dinner with my friend and I know she's going to talk about breaking up with her boyfriend because she talks about that all the time and she never does it. And so what I'm going to make sure that I do is I'm going to make sure I'm going to prepare, right? I'm going to
Mm,
I'm going to either like just be annoyed with her to begin with so I don't have to feel anything. Like my
wow.
annoyance is going to prepare me,
Mm,
or I'm going to like Google, or I'm going to send a book, I'm going to send her a book on Amazon, or I'm going to bring some books that I think are really helpful for her. Right. So I'm going to do this preparing. So that's
yeah.
another part. That's another protective part that's preparing me from being triggered, from having that trigger. So I'm going to be
Ah.
prepared so that I don't get triggered. Right. I'm going to
Yep.
blame her and her stupid boyfriend. I'm going to be mad at her because she never breaks up with him, or I'm going to come prepared with material. And here is all the material.
Yeah.
All of those are preparing us so that we don't get triggered, or trying to kind of
Mm,
manage the situation so that I don't get triggered. So
mm,
that's another type of protector, right? One that kind of comes before we get triggered, sort of
yeah.
that exile, that sort of younger, a lot of shamey, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy, those kind of beliefs or messages.
Okay.
So a manager comes before that gets triggered, and then we call a firefighter comes after it's been triggered, right? Something's
Ah.
been triggered, some vulnerability, some fire is here, and
Yep.
that firefighter comes in to take that out, right? So whether it's
Mm,
perfectionism or blaming her could happen after, right? Blame her. Well, she's so stupid, blah, 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 blah. That
yeah.
could be a firefighter, or the chips, or
Yeah.
whatever, lots of things can come in to take care of that. And then, or the numbing, right? I don't feel that at all. I'm just going to pretend I don't feel that. We have lots of good dissociative, pretending parts that just like, I'm not going to feel that. No, thank you. I don't want to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of how our system's laid out. We have protectors, ones that
Okay.
come before, ones that come after, and then we have exiles that sort of vulnerable feelings, beliefs that we kind of lock in the basement. We exile away because we don't want to. I want to live. I want to function. I want to be successful and happy. So I'm going to push those away.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah.
Hmm. Thank you for explaining the kind of the system in that way. I think that was really helpful. Um, so I want to go back to that question. What is the
Yeah.
benefit of creating space between parts and creating space between self and parts?
So if we don't create that space, so we call that blended. So if I don't create
Okay.
that space, then I am the part, right? I am the
Mm,
part right now. The part is embodying me, the part that is sort of thinking, I'm really in my head right now. I want to explain this well. I am that part. Right.
okay.
I am the part that's criticizing my friend. I am the part that's like, oh my gosh, she's so stupid. I am the part that's looking up the books on Amazon. I
Yeah.
am that part. I am the part that is drinking too much or eating when I'm upset or looking at porn or shopping too much or
Yeah.
gossiping or being perfect or criticizing. Like I
Mm,
am that part. So I'm just imagining really embodying those parts because that's who we are. We are those parts when they're driving the bus. Like when that part's
okay.
driving the bus or leading, then we are that part.
Mm,
And so the biggest thing, and really, I think the hardest thing is to remember or to recognize that we're in a part, which I'm putting in quotes. I'm in a part, right?
mm,
Oh, so this is the beginning space. Oh, there's a part of me here that's criticizing my friend. Oh,
hmm.
there's space right there.
Yeah.
I'm aware of a part. There's a space. Me, awareness, the part. There is the
Hmm.
space. I'm aware there's a part here that's criticizing my friend. Okay. And then I can be curious about it, or I can be
Yeah.
critical of it. That's another part. But just that beginning unblending, oh, I'm in a part that really is working too much right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
Mm.
I can bring some curiosity to it, but really just that beginning step of I am aware that there's a part here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like I am the part. Like you can imagine kind of holding a pillow really, really close to you, like, and the pillow is the part, like you are the part. And I can't
Yeah.
see that. I can't get to know it. I can't understand it. I can't bring curiosity to it. And so I kind of hold it out in front of me and then I can see it. Oh, hey, here's the
Mm.
pillow. It's pretty. It's this color. Now there's
Wow.
space between me and it, but now I can actually see it and I can get to
Mm-hmm.
know it and I can befriend it and find out what's going on. Why is it here? Why is it here right now? How's it trying to help me? What's its positive
Mm.
intention for me? I can have a
Mm.
conversation with it with some curiosity, but I can't do
Wow.
that if I can't see it.
Yeah, that's beautiful imagery. I love that visual there. Totally, totally agree. And I think that a benefit of that as well in just recognizing that I have different parts of me is that I know when we're in that like shame, guilt, judgment state or that part of us, we're blended. I guess you would say maybe we're blended with that part. We tend to say like, this is who I am. Like, I am just a
Yes.
perfectionist. I am just a binge eater. I am just like, this is who I am. I'm just a judgmental person. But when we create that space, like, oh no, that's just a part of me. And to me, that like the image that comes to me is like like shoulders going down. Like there's
Yes.
just relief and there's space there to become curious and even and just ask ourselves like that question, like, am I really a judgmental person? Maybe I'm judging this situation, maybe this judgmental part of me is coming up right now, but you're taking that load off of yourself, of defining yourself and putting yourself in a box. That's one of the reasons I love having my guests introduce themselves, is because I don't need to put you in a box. I don't need to tell like, she's this, she went to this college, she has this degree, she's a mom. Like, I mean, we all put ourselves in boxes, but that's, I allow you to put yourself in that
Yeah.
box and explore how you want to present yourself in this podcast specifically. Because we all have boxes and we all have parts, and they're not, I think there was something else that you said. Well, maybe you didn't say this, Olive, you said it, but not this way. I've heard other people say like, there are no bad parts, right? Like that's like one of the biggest things. There's no
Yeah.
bad parts. Your judgmental part is not bad. But when we're able to separate ourselves and look at it, it's that's what you said. You said, like, how is this here to help me? How is this showing up to protect me and to help me and to keep me safe? Because that's really what, is that what all of our parts are doing? Are always just trying to help us?
Yeah, so I love everything that you just said, and I think that one of the things that I really will, when I'm trying to sort of sell this idea of multiplicity, that we all have these different parts, but
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm a judgmental person, that's just who I am, and da, 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 and they kind of have this little sassiness about it. Then
Mm-hmm.
I would say, okay, so is there a part of you that, is there a part of you that thinks differently about it, even like 1%? Like, is there something
Mm.
different than that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm a binge eater. That's who I am. That's how I identify myself. And I think I think parts of us do that because there's really safety and sort of black and white thinking. There's a lot of safety. I am
Okay.
this. There's actually a lot of comfort in that, right? I
Yeah.
am this. It's who I am. Right. So, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. You have a part of you that believes that that's who you are. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
curious if there's like a 1% inside of you that thinks that might be
Mm.
different. Like, is
Wow.
there something else inside of you that thinks differently or has a different opinion? Because I'm not going to argue. So this is how I used to do therapy. Then I'm going to argue with that part of you and tell you why you're not right, why that might not be true. I'm going to ask
Ah.
you to say, is there something inside of you that has a different opinion about that? Because there
Hmm.
probably is. There
Yeah.
probably is. And
Yeah.
so that kind of teaches, right? Like, I'm in a lot of pain. I have a lot of pain. My whole body is in pain. Okay, so there's a lot of pain. I'm hearing that. I'm not saying that that's not true. That's true. You're in a lot of pain. Is there something else that feels differently than that? Is there something else
Wow.
here that might feel different?
Hmm.
And then maybe is there a reaction, right? I'm in pain. Is there a reaction? And this is the family. I'm in pain, or I'm a perfectionistic, or I'm just really judgmental. Okay. So there's a part of you that reacts to that. Yeah, I hate that I'm judgmental, or I'm anxious that I'm in
Mm.
pain, or I'm angry about this thing I'm
Yeah.
feeling. Okay, great. So now we've got two parts, right? Now
Wow.
I've got two parts, right? We've got the initial part one, and then we've got the reaction part two. So
Yeah.
now we've got two parts, and we can just go with that, right? And then
Hmm.
this other question we ask in IFS that creates space: how are you feeling towards these parts of you? Right?
Hmm.
There's the inviting self to be more present, be more available.
Hmm.
Is that, how are you feeling towards these parts? Right?
Ah.
One's judgmental and one's angry that you're judgmental. One likes you're judgmental because it makes me
Yeah.
safe in the world. That's two parts. I'm
Hmm.
judgmental, and judgmental makes me safe in the world. It creates
Wow.
safety. Of course it does.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so there's two parts, right? All right, so how are
Hmm.
you feeling towards them? Can you bring some curiosity? What do they do? How are they helping you? That's your other question. So
Yeah.
yes, so those are protector parts. So those parts are protecting. They might think
Hmm.
you're younger. And my guess is you know enough of your story to know why they might be there, or where they came from, or where they, like, sort of thinking about your family history,
Yeah.
why you might have needed to be judgmental to help you
Mm.
survive in your family, right? If I'm
Mm.
judgmental, then it helps. There's some way that helps me survive, and not in a, it could be physically, like literally surviving, but maybe
Yeah.
just surviving emotionally keeps me
Emotionally.
really emotionally safe in my family by being judgmental. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we can track
Mm-hmm.
that, like that tracks. And that, a lot of that, like most of our major players in our parts are going to track back to helping us cope with something in our family. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be big T trauma. It doesn't even have to be small T trauma. It could just be being in a family. I mean, I'm an
Yeah.
amazing, amazing parent. I have a 13-year-old. I'm the most amazing parent. Um, but he has parts because I'm still a human.
Right.
And yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So he has parts that, because he has to deal with me.
Yeah, yeah. And other people. I mean, it's not just you. It's we develop these
Totally.
parts outside of our family and in
Exactly.
our teachers and friend groups. I'm really curious to move into, you and I briefly chatted about, Susan McConnell wrote a book called Somatic IFS and introduced this more somatics behind IFS. And that's what really intrigues me, because I do somatic breath work. I do a lot of somatic work of just getting into the body. And so when I came across IFS, having a therapy tool, having a therapy approach that, like you said, was not all cognitive and was really getting down into the body, and instead of forcing and like you said, like I would argue with this part, instead of logically thinking through everything like we do. I think, at least in my perspective, that's how I viewed therapy, and I think that that's like, I've had therapy explain, like, it's very top down, and somatic work is very bottom up, as in mind down to the body is therapy, somatic work is body to the mind. It's where you start, I suppose. So somatic IFS, my question is, for those of us that have maybe not done IFS therapy before, or haven't explored IFS in general, how can we begin to use our body to discover these different parts of us and begin to build relationships with them?
Yeah, I love that. So you could use your body in that, like, so, tell me, what's going on, what's bothering
Mhm.
you, what's happening with you, or just, so you don't have to, don't even think about it in therapy, just sort of noticing yourself, like, what's going on, what is my complaint right now, right? Like,
Okay.
I'm mad at my friend, I'm frustrated with my friend, I'm frustrated with my partner, I want to eat all the donuts, whatever it is, like, whatever that
Mhm.
is, like, what's the complaint, what's the symptom, what's the thing that you don't like, what's the thing you want to fix, like, whatever that
Mm.
is, we all have something. Or what's the
Mhm.
thought that, what is the thought you're saying to yourself that you don't like, or whatever the complaint is. And then as you think about that, right, like, sort of, maybe I'm mad at my mother-in-law because of blah, 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 blah. Okay, so as you think about that, and you're either thinking about it in your own mind,
Mhm.
just what's happening in your body,
Mm.
right? What's happening in your body? Most of us, lots of us, don't even understand that question, right? Because I'm
Absolutely.
all head, right?
Right.
I'm in my head because she's terrible and blah 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 blah.
Right.
Okay, so as you're doing that right now, everyone listening is thinking of something that's bothering them, like whatever's bothering you, and you're sort of in your head, probably
Mhm.
99% of people are. Just
Mhm.
stop for a second and notice what's happening in your body.
Mm.
Does it feel cut off? Is there a numbness? Is your
Mm.
heart racing? Is your chest tight? Stomach upset? It's usually where it is, right? It's either shoulders, chest, tummy is where we
Mhm.
normally notice something. Is your
Okay.
face tensed up? Is your in between your eyebrows, where we all want to get Botox, is that really tight because we're thinking, right? So that's
Yeah.
really tightly in. Where are you noticing that in your body?
Mm.
And then just stay with that for a little bit and just see what else you hear, or what else
Mm.
you notice, or what happens. Like, what happens when you bring your body into this? Just what do you notice?
Mm.
And I think I mean, Susan, who wrote the book, the Somatic IFS book, she has a whole kind of program and protocol on
Mhm.
how to bring the body more into IFS. But regular, sort of typical IFS is asking that question, right? Like,
Okay.
I'm noticing that I'm in a part, right? Even if I'm doing IFS on my own, right? I'm noticing that I'm in a part.
Mm.
And then I'm just going to notice, how am I experiencing that in my body? What's happening in my body? And then can me, bring attention to that part in my body, to that sensation in my body, and let that part that's showing up in my body in that way, right? There's a part that's in my chest, a part that's in my belly, a part that's got my shoulders crunched up, a part that's got my eyebrows wrinkled up. Can I
Mm.
just bring my attention, my curiosity? So it's almost imagining putting your attention on that part in your body, wherever that's showing up, and
Mhm.
just seeing what happens when you bring your attention to that. Just bring your
Mm.
attention to your body, where that part's showing up. Can you bring some curiosity? More information come, more words come. Maybe there's an image that comes. Maybe there's something
Mm.
shifts in your body, right? As I bring my attention to my chest, there's tightness in my chest. And as I myself brings my attention there, I wonder if I just feel a shift just by bringing my attention to that spot.
Wow. Mhm.
If there's just a softening right there, just by me being a little more present.
Mm. Mm. That's great. Yeah, I love that. And I think that there's a lot of, like, I love that you pointed out in the beginning, there might be that disconnect, right? Like, there might be that, like, I don't feel anything. And I think that that's an easy initial answer. And to continue, maybe just give it 2 minutes. And if it feels like a lot, then move on with your day and then
Well,
come back
I
tomorrow.
think totally. And I think the
Yeah.
other thing is, can we pay attention to the part that's cutting it off? And it might,
Ooh.
I'm slashing my throat, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that kind of violent. It really could be, okay, what do I know? Do I notice a numb? Like, just describe that. Is it a
Hmm.
cutoff? Is it a numb? Is it a disconnection? What is it? Right. It just in my head, I feel nothing in my body. What does feel nothing mean? Like, I'm going to slow
Yeah.
that down and stay right there, because when we think about childhood, not again, doesn't have to be big T, small T trauma. Something's happening that a
Mm-hmm.
part of us learned to cut us off from our bodies for a reason, for a good reason.
Mm.
So if I just stay here, right, that part is like, wait a minute, for 50 years, you've not been connected to your body. I'm not about to just let you do that right now just because you're asking me. Right.
Right.
Right. No. So I'm just going to notice that, because there's a part here. There's a part here. And
Ooh.
so, yeah, let's just get curious. Let's just get
Yep.
curious about the part that's not letting you connect to your body, not in a pushing so that we like can get to the body, but
Right.
I'm just going to be curious about how is that part showing up? What does it feel like? Can we give it some words? Can we give it a feeling? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is there a bodily sensation, even if it's completely numb? I don't know. I would stay with that and just see what
Hmm.
happens, because I'm
Hmm.
curious about that. If there's no connection, then I want to know more.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. One thing that I was thinking about today, I've been thinking about the word curious a lot, like before our conversation. And what I'm thinking of right now is that a lot of times, probably because I'm like in the coaching field and the helping field, but a lot of the time when I hear I just want to get curious about it, I immediately have another thought of like, I want to get curious because I have an expectation of leading. Like, I'm thinking if I'm having a conversation with a partner, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard, okay, just ask curious questions. Like, I'm really curious of your response to this topic because it kind of threw me off. I wasn't really expecting that answer. And in the back of my mind, sometimes I'm like, I want to get curious because I'm trying to help him arrive to a specific location in the conversation, right? And I do that with my friends sometimes. And so I'm thinking in this parts conversation, in like the numbness, like, what if I were just truly curious without any expectation of, like you said, without forcing or trying to get into the body, but I'm truly just curious. I don't know if there's another word besides
Yeah.
curious.
Okay, so this is where we can bring the body in again. Okay, so I'm
Okay.
curious. So I say to my partner, I'm really curious why you keep leaving your cups all over the house. I'm just
Yeah.
curious
Right.
why you can't pick up a cup. Just curious. So I can ask inside me, not him. I can ask inside, where is that curiosity coming from in my body? Where is that curiosity coming
Mm.
from in my body? Because that is not an open-hearted, self-led curiosity, right?
No.
No, it's a sarcastic. That curiosity is not coming from, we call it a self-led place, right? Self
Okay.
has the C qualities of curious, calm, compassion, connected. Me asking, I'm really curious why you keep leaving your cups everywhere. That's not coming from a self-led curiosity, right? Self-led
Mm.
curiosity is, I'm open-hearted, I'm soft. The other thing we can be curious about is with our heads, right? Like, we analyze.
Yeah.
So I'm curious with my head. So sometimes that can be almost an analyzing curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does this work? How do we fix
Mm.
it? How do we change it? That's what curiosity is going to show up in our heads. So another
Mm.
really good way of asking the body, like, where is this feeling? Like, where, I'm curious, but where is that feeling located?
Mm.
Because it's going to be located somewhere different. And when I think about asking him that question, I actually imagine it being this sassy, almost like a little electric energy. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like it's in my body. It feels like it's almost like this little
Ooh.
teenagery, like, yeah, it feels like that.
I
And that
like
kind of
that.
feels like away from my body, actually.
I love that. Thank you for that example. That was beautiful. I want to be very mindful of the time, and I want to get into the end of our conversation. So I want to talk about human design for a few moments, but I also want to just open the door one last time for anything that you feel is very important that we didn't touch on that you want to convey about IFS or on this
The only thing
platform.
I want to say is, we spend a lot of time talking about parts, and it's important, and we need to unblend from parts and get to know them. And I think that's really important. But the other really big gift of IFS is this idea of ourself. and that
Yeah.
who we actually are, who I am, the essence of me, the soul of me is this adult, which I'm putting in quotes, but it's
Mm.
not just an adult, right? It's this bigger thing that's even sort of bigger than me.
Yeah.
And that is with me all the time. And when that can come up with my parts and there's this
Mm.
withness together, that's where healing really can happen. And so I think that it's
Yeah.
really important for us all to really take in this idea of the authentic self, not just naming parts and mapping parts and befriending parts, which is
Yeah.
important, but I want to show up in that room too, right? I'm not just
Mm-hmm.
analyzing, oh, here's all the parts of my life, or here's all my symptoms, or here's all the stuff I want to change. I want to show up in that room so that there's all those parts feel me, feel
Mm.
my light, feel my warmth, feel my love for them. And if that's
Mm.
all that ever happens, there's a lot of relief in just that. So
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, definitely paying attention to the self and developing that connection. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So, I want to briefly touch on human design. What do you know about human design? Nothing.
very little, but it came up the other day in something, and you know, like the kind of serendipitous stuff
Of
happened.
course.
And I was like, ooh, that's so interesting. Someone was talking about it the other day.
Okay, okay. So human design, just like one of the goals of my podcast is to introduce different tools. Like breathwork is a tool, therapy is a tool, IFS is a tool. Human design is a tool in my toolbox. That's why I love talking about human design. I think it's also there's a lot of exploration that can happen with human design, and that's why I love it. We can explore our reactions to learning about our human design. So human design, I have plenty of like intro podcasts. So for anyone listening that also doesn't know about human design, scroll down and there's a couple like intro to human design podcasts. But it's roughly based on a combination of things like astrology and the chakra system and energy work. So I looked up your human design, and what I love doing with people that don't really know much about human design is to kind of just talk about it and then see what hits, what you feel lands, what you feel doesn't land. So for those of you that did not read the description, because I forgot to mention it in the beginning, Tammy is a 1-3 sacral authority generator. And I will explain that. I am also a 1-3, by the way, and sacral authority. So we have a lot of similarities. I want to talk about generator though, because I think that's probably the easiest place to start is there's 5 different energy types is what we call them, and everyone falls into one of those 5 different energy types. You are a generator, I'm a manifesting generator. So we have like I'm kind of a combination of 2 energy types, you are just the one. So a generator, the and I don't know you very well, so I want to hear your reaction and your response to this. But generators in general, they make up the manifesting generators, and generators make up the majority of the population. We make up 70%. So probably you have a lot of generators, manifesting generators in your life, just by like statistical probability. Generators are called the doers of the world. If you think of the word generator, like you think of they generate things, they make things, they do things. But I think, well, at least in my experience, when I meet a client that's a generator or one of my best friends is a generator, and I told her about it, she's like, I don't want to be the doer of the world. Like, I don't want to fucking do everything. And so that's why I love this part of the conversation, because the important like nuance of generators is to do what lights you up, to do what innately brings you energy. Generators and MGs can really live in functional burnout for a long time, and like we tend to, this is just part of my history, say yes to everything because I can do it. Like in my past relationships, that's been a big story of mine, is I take on so much of the household, of bringing in the income, of doing the chores, of cooking and cleaning, because I can do it. And other energy types maybe have I don't know how to word that. Maybe have a little bit of an easier time like setting boundaries or feel stronger that like I just cannot do this. So generators can live in that functional burnout for a long time. Um, but the invitation for generators is to learn that ability like to say no. And when we say no, we're actually creating space to have that yes, that thing that really lights us up to come into our world. Because if we're saying yes to everything because we can, because we don't want to let people down, we want to people please, whatever it is, if we're saying yes to everything, then when something comes along that really is a true yes, maybe we don't have time anymore.
Mm.
So that's a little bit about generators. What hits for you there? What do you feel like a little bit abrasive about?
Well, what just comes up for me is this is such a gift that you're giving me, and I really
Hmm.
just really appreciate it. I feel like it's a gift, and
Oh,
I think because I'm a doer, I'm a generator. I feel like I'm often the doer, right? Like the giver, or so
yeah.
it just feels like wow, that's my first instinct is like wow, you're giving me a gift, and that feels
Oh.
unusual, right? Like it just feels
Mm,
unusual for me. So that's actually what I'm really noticing is by
mm,
somebody doing for me, by telling me this feels like you're doing for me, and that feels
wow.
very unusual. Um,
Mm,
that's the first instinct. And that's probably not true, but there's a part of me that's here that's feeling that because there's another part coming in saying that that's not actually true, that other people do all kinds of stuff for me and they're open to help me. So I'm going to get that part to step back and just stay with
yeah.
this really yummy feeling of this gift that you're giving me because that feels really
Mm,
good.
mm,
And it feels very true. Um, Even in a conversation I had yesterday with someone that's just sort of trying to help me with all the things that's like,
mm.
I don't really know what lights me up, right? There's 100
Yes.
things I could be doing right now. And I feel really tapped out and I feel like I'm doing 100,000 things. But I know that there's something else. I'm just not sure what that something else is. And so I'm spinning my wheels and yes, saying yes to everything. And I don't know if that's not really leaving space for
Mm,
me. There is no space right now in my life for, and I even feel a little bit teary. I feel like there is no space for a yes. Even though because
mm,
I'm busy doing so many things that I don't know that all those things are actually good for me.
mm, mm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's what's coming up.
Yeah. Good for you or light you up. That would be another way maybe to word that.
I
Like
love that. Like,
is it bringing you energy or is it taking energy? That's
yeah.
a perspective.
Well, I love it because it's a generator, right? Because we live
Hmm.
in New England and I didn't have
Yeah.
electricity for 2 days. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
generators are very important.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Oh
So
my
yeah,
gosh.
I love that. Instead of being good, bad, right? There's a
Hmm.
judgment there. Instead
Hmm.
of being like what lights me up, what gives me energy, what feels like a yes. Like I think that kind of
Hmm.
like what actually feels like yes, not just that thing I have to say yes to, but that lights
Right.
me up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's
Instead
always
of it
those
just sort
things
of
that
like
we.
checking off, right? I'm just sort of
Right.
like, okay, here's the 100 things I have to do this week. Okay. Yes, I'll do
Exactly.
100 things. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Which I mean, the generators that I know, it's very difficult to separate or begin to because at least the generators that I know, there's like a lot of pressure that, well, I have to do all of this. But almost like that would be my invitation is do I have to like is just again bringing that curiosity like what are the things that I really do have to do, what are the things that I'm doing because I feel obligated to do them, and then what are the things, let's explore what are the things that are lighting me up and bringing me energy. Because the other last piece about generators is they are the most magnetic. My best friend that I keep referencing, when I first met her, I witnessed, it wasn't even me, I witnessed her magnetism, other people noticing her magnetism. And that was like, it was so profound for me to witness someone be that magnetic. And when generators are doing the things that light them up and listening to the full body yeses, you become even more magnetic, and then you're going to bring more of those full body yeses to you. You're also going to bring those people that know that you're magnetic and know that you can fucking do it and ask you. So it's like weeding out
I love that.
all of it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you so much. That's
Oh,
beautiful.
so fun. Yeah. It's just a fun tool, you know? Like I think like everything we can easily put ourselves in the box of human design and take everything that we're saying like for this is, oh, this is just how I am,
Right.
or we can take it, oh, this is interesting, and this is like, I love you worded that beautiful. You're like, this is what's coming up for me in hearing you talk about it. And I love that approach because it doesn't mean, and there's so many nuances like your chart. I don't know if you ever got into astrology, but you can't just look at your sun sign. You have to
Right.
really look at your whole birth chart, which is a lot. It's a
It's so
lot.
completely overwhelming. Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm curious about that. Like I'm curious about that too. So this has been
yeah,
a gift. I've really appreciated it.
yeah.
And I'm curious and want to know more for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah. 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 So many great tools. So thank you so much for coming on. This was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you for introducing IFS in such a digestible and approachable way. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.